It was a peaceful Sunday morning when Barron Trump finally decided to do something that had been on his mind for a long time: visit an animal shelter. He had always loved animals, but his busy schedule rarely allowed him time for such things. Today, however, he was determined to change that. As his car pulled up to the shelter, a modest yet well-maintained facility on the outskirts of town, Barron felt an odd sensation in his chest. It was as if he knew this visit would be different from any other charitable act he had done before. The moment he stepped inside, the sounds of barking, meowing, and the faint scent of hay and pet shampoo filled the air. He was greeted warmly by one of the shelter volunteers, a kind-looking woman in her 40s named Linda. "Welcome, Mr. Trump. It's an honor to have you here. We're always excited when people take an interest in our animals," Linda said, shaking his hand firmly. "I've been meaning to visit for a while," Barron replied, scanning the room filled with curious eyes behind the metal bars of the kennels. "I wanted to learn more about what you do here, and maybe help in any way I can." Linda smiled. "That means a lot. Every animal here has a story, and sadly, many of them aren't happy ones." As they walked down the aisle, Linda introduced Barron to several dogs and cats, each with a unique and often heartbreaking history. Some had been abandoned, some rescued from abusive homes, and others surrendered due to their owners passing away or being unable to care for them any longer. Then they stopped in front of a kennel where a golden retriever lay curled up in the corner, his golden fur slightly unkempt, his body barely moving. His deep brown eyes, clouded with sorrow, lifted only briefly before settling back down, as if he had long given up on expecting kindness. "This is Cooper," Linda said softly, her voice filled with the compassion. "His owner passed away a few months ago. No family members wanted to take him in, so he ended up here. He's been like this ever since, barely moving, barely responding. He's grieving, just like a human would." Barron felt an unexpected pang in his chest. He crouched down and studied Cooper closely. Their eyes met. At that moment, something unexplainable happened. It was as if a silent conversation passed between them, as if Cooper was speaking without words, telling Barron of his pain, his loneliness, his longing to be loved again. Cooper, who had been withdrawn for weeks, suddenly lifted his head slightly. His eyes, which had been dull and lifeless, seemed to spark with recognition, as if he sensed something different about Barron. Linda gasped. "Oh my, he hasn't responded to anyone like that before." Barron slowly reached his hand toward the bars, his voice gentle. "Hey buddy," he whispered. "I know how it feels to lose someone. It hurts, doesn't it?" Cooper blinked slowly, then, hesitantly, his legs shaky from disuse. He took a step forward, then another, until he was right in front of Barron, his nose pressed against the cold metal, breathing in the unfamiliar scent of someone who, for the first time in a long while, didn't feel like a stranger. Linda placed a hand over her mouth, her voice thick with emotion. "This is incredible. He's been shutting everyone out." Barron chuckled softly, feeling the warmth of the moment settle deep in his chest. "Looks like we understand each other, huh?" Cooper let out a small sigh and, in a move that surprised even himself, rested his head against the bars where Barron's hand lingered. Barron's decision was made in that instant. He hadn't come here with the intention of adopting, but sometimes the universe had other plans. He looked up at Linda, determination in his eyes. "I can't leave him here. He belongs with me." Cooper's tail gave the tiniest wag, just a flicker, but it was there. Hope, a promise of something new, a home, a second chance. Barron turned back to Cooper, his voice now steadier. "Would you like that, buddy? A home, a place where you'll never be alone again?" Cooper hesitated, then took another step closer. His nose nudged Barron's fingers, and this time his tail wagged just a little more. Linda wiped away a tear. "I can't believe this. I think he's choosing you, Barron." Barron nodded, feeling something tighten in his chest. "Yeah, I think he is." Cooper's ears perked slightly at Barron's voice. For the first time in weeks, he seemed present, like a yeti who was waking up from a long, painful sleep. He let out a soft whimper. Then, before anyone could process it, he licked Barron's fingers through the bars. Barron laughed, his eyes misting over. "All right, Cooper, let's get you home." Linda smiled through her tears. "You're going to change his life." Barron gave Cooper one last look before standing up. "I think he's going to change mine, too." Linda's face lit up. "That would be amazing. Let's start the paperwork." As the adoption process began, Cooper remained by Barron's side, his tail wagging gently for the first time in a long while. It was as if he understood that he was finally going home. As they finalized the paperwork, another volunteer approached Barron. "You have no idea how much this means," she said. Cooper had lost all hope. "We were afraid he might never recover from his grief." Barron knelt down beside Cooper, gently stroking his fur. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he said. "No one should feel abandoned." When everything was set, Barron walked out of the shelter with Cooper beside him. The golden retriever, once withdrawn and lifeless, now had a spring in his step. He kept looking up at Barron as if to say, "Thank you." By the time they arrived at Barron's home, Cooper had fully embraced his new reality. He explored his new surroundings, sniffing everything curiously, before finally settling down beside Barron's feet. That evening, news of the adoption spread like wildfire on social media. Barron, aware of the attention, decided to use the moment to bring awareness to the plight of shelter animals. He posted a heartfelt message. "Animals are family. When they lose their owners, they feel grief just like we do. It's heartbreaking to think of how many end up in shelters, longing for love. If you are thinking about getting a pet, please adopt instead of buying. So many of them just want a second chance at happiness. Adopt, don't shop." The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people commented, sharing their own adoption stories and pledging to consider rescuing an animal instead of purchasing one. Barron had not only changed Cooper's life, he had sparked a movement. A few days later, Barron took Cooper back to the shelter, not to return him, but to visit the other animals still waiting for homes. Cooper, once a lost soul himself, now wagged his tail excitedly as he approached the other dogs, as if encouraging them to hold on a little longer. Linda watched with teary eyes. "It's incredible. He's like a completely different dog." Barron smiled. "That's what love does. It changes you. Have we considered adoption instead of purchasing when looking for a pet?" This story is a powerful reminder of how deep the bond between humans and animals can be. It teaches us that love and companionship are not limited to people, but extend to the animals who share our lives. Barron Trump's simple decision to visit a shelter led to a life-changing experience for both him and Cooper. It was more than just an adoption. It was the healing of two souls who found comfort in each other. Many animals like Cooper end up in shelters through no fault of their own. They wait, sometimes for years, for someone to see them, to love them, to take them home. The truth is, many of these animals were once beloved pets, showered with love and care, only to find themselves abandoned or forgotten due to unfortunate circumstances. The trauma they experience is real, and without proper attention, they can lose hope, much like Cooper did. Adopting an animal is not just about providing them with food and shelter. It's about giving them a renewed sense of belonging, security, and love. When someone chooses to adopt, they are not only changing the life of that animal, but they are also making space for another one in need to be rescued. Shelters often operate at full capacity, and every adoption makes a difference. Beyond the personal benefits of adoption, there is also a greater societal impact. Adopting rather than buying from breeders or pet stores discourages the mass breeding of animals for profit, a practice that often leads to neglect and unethical treatment. Puppy mills in particular exploit animals for financial gain, subjecting them to inhumane conditions and prioritizing profit over welfare. This story also highlights the healing power of animals. Just as Cooper found comfort in Barron, countless studies have shown that pets provide emotional support, reduce stress, and even improve mental health. The unconditional love of an animal can be transformative, offering companionship and a sense of purpose. Barron's act of kindness serves as an example of what is possible when we open our hearts to those in need. His experience with Cooper reminds us that second chances are often the most beautiful opportunities in life. Whether it's a pet or a person, love has the power to heal even the deepest wounds. Let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts below. Your perspective is valuable and might inspire others.